Hello, and welcome to World of Tanks with Dsann. Today's video will be a beginner's guide for the newer players out there, and I will be explaining the interface in both the garage and in battle, going through the various tabs and buttons, explaining what they do. I'll also be explaining the very basic mechanics, like what module damage will do to your tank, what a crew being knocked out will do, how battles are laid out, various game modes and such. Now, unlike the other tutorials I will be making, this is going to be one big thing instead of split into parts, but hopefully you'll find it useful and you'll stick around through the whole thing. Alright, let's get on with the interface. Now, when you first start up the game, there's going to be lots of buttons and things you don't understand, and that's understandable because, well, it is a lot to learn at first, and as in most games, it takes time. I'm hopefully here to help you with that. Now, I'll start at the bottom, so it's easier to explain what this is. Obviously, it's your tanks. So you see all the tanks you have. You can scroll with this. Obviously, when you're starting, you're going to have a limited amount. So you can click a tank, you can select it, and obviously you can rotate it, look at it, zoom in and out. See, okay, you can just look at your tank, enjoy it in the garage. Now, obviously, this is a premium garage. So when you're first starting out, you'll probably have a slightly less fancy garage, but it really doesn't matter too much that. It's just for aesthetics. Down here you have your various chats like clan, tank companies, your general chat, your contacts, and various channels you can search and join. Here is your invitations, so if somebody invites you to a platoon or a tank company, which I'll explain in a little bit, you'll get it here, so that's good to know. Also training rooms, which is basically like you just load up with some friends and you can practice stuff if you want to. This is your notifications. You get like after battle, you'll see your after battle reports as well as your costs and how much you paid for ammo and repairs and whatnot. And when you're speaking of repairs, that leads us nicely into the service area. So you see you have your repairs bar up here. I always set my tanks to repair automatically, and after every battle you will have to pay depending on if you take damage, of course, you will pay a sum that depends on how the tier and size. I don't know the exact numbers. Here you have your ammunition. Again, I have this set to resupply automatically on most, if not all, my tanks because, well, I don't really use what is known as premium shells, which cost either gold, which is a real money currency, or the equivalent in credits. So 11 gold cost 4,400 to convert. If you were to convert gold to credits, that's how that works. You have various types of shells like armor piercing, which is basically your standard ammo. You have armor piercing composite rigid, or ACPR, which is APCR, sorry, and it is got a higher penetration value for the same kind of damage, but usually they're gold with a few exceptions. You have your high explosive. These have significantly lower penetration, which I'll explain in an armor tutorial later on, but they do significantly higher damage in your stock rounds, but they can still do damage even if they don't penetrate, and I'll explain this in a later tutorial. Then we come to your consumable tab. I recommend always carrying a repair kit, a first aid kit, and a fire extinguisher later on. For tiers 1 through like 3, this won't be very big a deal. If you're wondering what I mean by tiers 1 through 3, I'll get to that in a minute as well. So you can see here is all the possible consumables. These are one use only. See, some of these cost credits, all these do. The rest of this costs gold, and they just give various benefits like 10% to crew skills and perks. Every crew member has a skill. I'll explain roughly how those work, although I won't get into too much detail. And you have larger versions of the stock repair kit, fire extinguisher, med kit, and such. So you can treat all your damage modules or all your crew, and it automatically puts out fire. And there will be various other consumables depending on what tank you drive. For example, my Carnarvon has the option to buy fuel, whereas my Leopard PTA, which is a German tank, might get none of that. It just gets the crew skill one. And my Chinese one might get, it gets a remove speed governor, which all Russians as well get. It damages your engine, but you get 10% engine power, so it can be useful. And they also get oil, which increases engine power by a little bit. And that's basically your service tab, so you might always want to recommend checking your ammo loadout before going into battle, so you don't run in without ammo. That's pretty stupid. I've seen that happen before. Now, next to these are obviously your ammo and consumables, as you can see here as well. Just for a quick oversight to see, okay, do I have all the modules on my tank? Now, these three are your equipment slots. So every tank can mount a piece of equipment. Well, several pieces actually, but one of three, well, three slots, so you can fit any one of these in each slot, and they do various things like increase your camouflage rating. This one gives you a view range bonus while you're standing still. This one gives you a view range bonus slightly less, but you can move with it. This one increases your suspension load capacity as well as its durability, so you can take more track damage before they get damaged. And it has gun laying drive to reduce your aiming time, and etc. It goes on for basically everything you can think about. It can upgrade, or not everything, but yeah. Here you have your tank modules, which are related to the tech tree. So you have your guns, your turrets, your engines, your tracks or suspension, and your radios. If we look over here on the top right corner, you have a bunch of buttons. This basically just lets you buy premium time, which costs gold. If we click it, we can see that for a month it is 2,500 gold, which will be around 20 euros, I believe. Or, no, 10 euros, sorry, my bad. Or your regional equivalent. You get gold, obviously, by this button or just going to the website. Here you can exchange your gold for credits or silver. Conversion rate is, as you can see here, 1 gold per 400 silver. And here you see your silver next to the exchange gold. Here is your free experience. This you can use on any tank, irregardless of the experience on the tank itself. So as you can see, I have 22,457. So if I were to go into this tank, I could add that to the pool it already has. So say you need 50,000, you have 25,000 free experience. That means your tank only needs to get 25,000 to unlock whatever you may be getting, and that leads into the progression. You can also convert from your tanks which are elite, which I'll explain later. Elite or premium, sorry. So if you look at the tech tree or research tree for this specific tank, you can see all the upgrades for this tank. Now, for example, you start with this line here is your starting stuff. You start with the 17 pounder in this case, a turret from the previous tank, basic radio, engine, and tracks. And then every one of these has an experience cost that obviously isn't quite expensive at this tier, but for example, this costs 14,000 experience. This costs, I believe, like 16 and 45,000. But this carries over onto the next tier, as I'll explain later, and so forth. Everything costs that, and obviously it costs credits to mount them on your vehicle as well as to buy the vehicle, like you can see here. See, it says purchase cost down there. Now if we click this, you can see a tech tree, in this case for the British tanks. So you start with your tier 1 here, branches off into your tier 2, or the light and medium tree in this case. So you have light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks, tank destroyers, and artillery. So in the British tree you have your medium and light tree here, your tank destroyer tree is here, your medium and then heavy tree is here, and then some alternative lines here that lead all to the artillery. Now I will explain these roles later on, but basically most of the countries have it, with the exception of the Chinese, who only have medium and light and heavy tanks. Currently they do not have artillery or tank destroyers. So here you have the French, Germans, the Americans, and last but not least the Russians. So as you can see, you have a progression. You have tier 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. all the way up to 10. And these get increasingly expensive. Everyone gets a free tier 1 at the start, I believe all 5 of them if I'm not mistaken. Then these generally cost around the same, about 120 to research. If we look at here, you can see I've already researched all of them, but 130. So I mean, it starts off light, then these get more expensive, 1,400. Then you're looking at 3,000, or yeah, around 4,000. Then you're up to like 13, 14, 11 in this case, so 10 to 13,000. Tier 6, then you're talking 20, around 20 to 30, I'd say. Yep. So these all are like in the 10 to 30,000 in some of these, so maybe not. yeah, research cost there. And it's so on. It increases every tier, as does the price, but obviously the advantages increase as well. If we look at, say, a tier, we're gonna see if I have a tier 1 here. Here are the stats, which you can also do by right-clicking it. So you can either see here or here that this tank has 100 hit points. It weighs 5.8 tons with a maximum load of 6.5. This is stock. Some tanks you can upgrade this, but not this one, obviously, by looking at my other side here. 70 engine power, your speed limit. This is not what your tank can go. It is the maximum the transmission will allow. Doesn't mean you'll necessarily see that speed. The traverse speed is basically how fast your tank does turns. So when you do press your turn keys, the tank will do this at whatever speed that is. In this case, it is 38 degrees per second. And here's your hull armor in millimeters. So you have 18, 16, 16 is front, side, and rear armor. Now the thing to note with the armor, and I'm not going to go too in depth because I have another tutorial coming for this specific subject, armor is not solid one piece. It's not all the same. So for example, this whole area here is not 18 millimeters. There are weak spots like here, although really at this tier it doesn't really matter, but later tiers weak spots become a big deal, and hopefully you'll learn to figure out how to find them and shoot them. Here you see your damages from the lowest to the highest possible, although if you look at the gun itself, oh, wrong gun. If you look at the stock gun, you can see that, oh, that's a turret. I'm so clumsy today, I apologize. Here is the stock gun, and as you can see, these are average penetration values. This is how many millimeters it'll penetrate, and this is the damage it'll do. Your accuracy is the lower this is, the better. So 0.3 is would be significantly better than 0.4, and etc. Not vice versa. How this works, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is in this case, a half-meter spread, or 0.54 meter spread over 100 meter at 100 meters range. The aiming time, how long it takes to go from full accuracy bloom to this accuracy here, which I'll explain when you see the battle interface, and the weight in kilograms is quite important, as I mentioned, the max weight limit on all tanks. Now, if we were to jump up a few tiers, say tier 5, you'll see that the stats generally increase, the more health. They're obviously heavier with more engine power, speed. They turn better, although not all tanks heavies obviously will be slower than that, but this is a medium tank. More armor, much better guns usually. Rate of fire obviously is explanatory. Turret traverse is the same as hull, but it's how fast the turret turns. View range in meters is a very important number to note. The higher the better, obviously, and signal range is also a useful number, which basically lets you see how far you can see, and also if you're in contact with an ally, they will share their visual information with you, so the enemies will pop up in your minimap. So now if we compare two tier 6 tanks, which is the tier up, here's a medium, and you can see the stats here. I'll give you a minute to look at those. As you can see, it's got 750 hit points, it got 520 horsepower engine with 48 km/h speed limit, and then this tank will hit that speed limit. It's got decent armoring. As you can tell, the turret has better armor, and this is a very big trend in American tanks, which I'll show you either later in another video. But basically the turret armor, especially in the front, is thicker, and that's because they're designed to basically cover up this part and just sit behind cover and fire over it, or over a hill if that's the case. And here you can also see more weak spots, like here would be a weak spot, here is a weak spot. This lower area here generally is a weak spot on most tanks. If we go compare, this is a tier 6 medium, here is a tier 6 heavy. Bigger tank, more hit points, more engine power, more armor, slower though. Well, this one has more engine power, that's not necessarily always the case. Turns slower, is slower. Generally get better guns, although not, again, this is not necessarily set in stone. And if we look at, say, a tier 8, we compare, for example, the American tier 8 heavy. As you can see, it's big turret. Now, this is a premium tank, i.e. it costs gold or real money to buy. But it really doesn't buy you any advantage, it just buys you a time advantage, if you will, because you'll have this tank earlier, which will help you in your experience grind, because premium tanks, as well as tanks where you've researched everything, like if we look at my Sherman again, you can see I've researched all the modules and all the tanks following it, which means it is what is known as elite, which is basically the same as a premium tank like this, in that if you have experience on it, like I do here, you can go here, convert experience. As you see, the T34 is listed here. I can click convert, and those 550 XP go into my free XP pool. Now, premium tanks do not have any upgrades or anything. They're basically stock is how you'll drive them, and generally they're good, but they usually have their quirks. So I'm not going to go into all of them now, but this one is a very typical American, and it's actually modeled off the T-30 Tier 9 tank destroyer, which can be seen here in the tech tree. Basically, the hull and the gun is pretty much the same as this gun here, with a slightly worse engine, I believe. Let's see, 860 horsepower, whereas this has 810. But other than that, it's the same gun as the second gun on the Tier 9. Same turret, same hull. Now, you may be noticing the hull is pathetically weak, but the turret armor is really good. Especially from the front, if you can cover up this area so you can only see the turret, this thing is, well, can be unkillable. Now, this number obviously is not quite true. There are other factors like this block of steel here called a mantle, which will absorb damage as well. And there are other factors which will be coming in my armor tutorial, although there may be something I missed. Now, I'd like to note that tanks do have modules, ammo racks, belts is obviously a module. You have your viewports, where I believe these two here count as viewports, which are external modules, as are the tracks and the gun, obviously, which can all be damaged. You also have your radio can be damaged, your engine, your fuel tanks, and I believe that's about it. If I didn't mention the ammo rack, obviously the ammo rack can be damaged. Now, these will have varying effects on your tank, depending on what happens. So if you take damage to your tracks, first they'll just get weakened, like they'll have reduced health, but you won't have any negative drawbacks. But if you get hit again, then they might break. And if they break, which is more likely if you shoot them here or here, as a side note, then you have to wait X seconds, depending on your repair skill, your crew, before they are up and running. You can drive again. Now, if you take a shot to your fuel tanks or your engine, you can risk catching fire. If your fuel tanks reach a certain health level, you'll automatically catch fire, which is why I always carry a fire extinguisher. The engines will have a chance of fire, in this case a 20% chance, which is actually kind of bad. But yeah, ammo racks will, when they get hit, they will reduce your loading speed, and if they take full damage, they will kill your tank instantly. As in, you can do full health damage to a tank. If you were to hit this tank and blow up its ammo rack from full health in one shot, it would lose 1500 damage in one hit. I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to me, and I've done it. Viewports just to reduce your view range. I believe it also counts like this part. I'm not 100% sure. The radio obviously reduces your radio range. And damaging the engine, but not break. Well, damaging the engine will reduce its power by 50%. Breaking it obviously stops you moving until it's repaired. Your crew can also take damage. As you can see, here is your crew example of the skills. This crew member is 100%. This is very important. They usually start at 50 unless you either use gold or you grind them up to 100%. And until then, they're not very effective at their job until they hit 100%. So your accuracy will be subpar. There is a bunch of math. I'm not actually going to get into detail. If you want to look at that, I will put a link in the description to the Wikipedia page, or the World of Tanks wiki, on just the World of Tanks wiki, and you can look up all that stuff. It's lots of good stuff. So if you look at here, you can see all their stats, average experience, experience to upgrade skill, battles left, etc., what tank they're competent for. Now, this is important because crew members are not interchangeable, with one exception, and that is if I were to say take the crew from my M6 here, I could take them out of this tank and put them in this, and use this to grind experience for my crew. because you have this little button here that says Accelerate Crew Training, which I believe, yeah, it picks the least experienced crew member and trains him twice as fast, but I do not believe that spends all the experience you earn. So if you were to earn 1,000 experience, that would go to the member with the lowest experience, in this case my radio operator, who only has 26% on his second skill, or his first skill, sorry. If you look at here, you have various skills. Now these will change depending on your crew member. I recommend just looking it up yourself, reading up on them, but you have all crew members can use repairs, camouflage, firefighting, and brothers in arms. And these, well, repairs and camouflage and firefighting kind of explain themselves. Brothers in arms basically increases the skill percentage. I don't know exactly how much, but it increases it by an X%, which can also be increased by ventilation, which is 5% in all crew skills. And yeah, obviously once you get up to, like, as a comparison, as you see in the armor and the gun on this, here's a normal tier 8 I have that is elite. So you can see it is much smaller tank. It is actually a heavy. It doesn't have as good armor, but this thing can still ricochet a lot of shots and take a lot of pounding because of the shape of this hull. Again, I'll get into that in my armor tutorial, but suffice to say there is a lot of variation, and there will be a lot of people who say that heavy tanks should go just rush ahead, medium should flank, and light should scout, and tank destroyers should camp, and that's about it, but that's not true. Every tank has a specific role. If you were to look at the Tiger H, or just the standard Tiger, if you will, the very famous one most people know about from World War II, it is actually a sniper tank, as it has very good accuracy, but it's quite weak. It's exemplified by the tier 9 German medium. Has absolutely trash armor. I mean, look at that, 70 armor on a tier 9, which is, well, let me compare it to tier 9 heavy. That's actually not a very good comparison, because that thing's pretty thin too. Let's compare to the German E75 versus the Leopard. Yeah. 160, 120, 120, 185, 80, 80 on the turret. Whereas here you have 70, 35, 25. This is basically a very big medium tank. I mean light tank, the Leopard. But it is designed to sit back at a comfortable distance and just snipe. If you look at the gun, it has really good accuracy. Aim time's kind of weak, but it hits like a truck. So yeah, that's the tanks, the tech tree, and all of that. Next, we'll look at the service record, the depot, the store, the barracks, and the missions tab. And then we'll go into battle and look at the interface there. So now that we've looked at the garage interface and the various buttons around here, let's start off with the barracks. Obviously this is where your crew is stationed. When you sell your tanks, you can put them here, and then you can use them on other tanks, or if you want to save them, say they have good crew skills or whatever. And basically this is quite simple. You just have crew. You can pay for a bigger barracks with gold. You can sort them, obviously, what tanks they're from, etc. Are they in all your vehicles, your barracks, and all your crew together? This is really simple. Not much to explain about, to be honest. Now, the tech tree we've looked at. The service record is a new... They changed this last patch, so you have a lot more stats now. So you can see some of your awards. And your battle stats, like how many battles you've had, your average damage, your hit ratios. Well, you can read these for yourself. It kind of explains itself. Mastery badge, Ace Tanker, means that you've done the best XP gain in that tank for that specific week. Then you have your awards, and the ones that are grayed out, obviously I do not have. So the ones that are lit up, obviously I do have. Some of these are not available anymore, like this one. It's not available anymore, but I have it because I got it before they changed it. Various awards, you can look at these yourself. Take me far too long to go through all of them. Suffice to say, these are ones you'll see the most, probably, along with a couple of these. Because, well, they're quite common, like, yeah, let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Sharpshooter, you hit an enemy vehicle 10 times or more. The series is broken by a miss, as you can see. The results, basically, it just goes over battle, so you can say you hit 5 shots in one game and then 5 in the next, you'll get a Sharpshooter badge. And the same goes for this, the Master Gunner. You penetrate 5 times in a row. This can go over battles, etc. And each tank has their own series. So tank A might have 3 hits, while tank B might have 4 and only need 1 more. Your statistics page is a bunch of numbers. Again, quite easily to understand. You know, enemies destroyed says itself. The amount of time. I don't know exactly what this would mean though. This is your kill death ratio, so I'm assuming that's deaths and just poorly worded. So so I should have a 1.808 kill death ratio. Yeah, that's about right. Your total damage and the damage you've received. This obviously I would imagine includes tanking damage, like if you've bounced a lot. Your damage ratio, again, damage caused versus damage received. The average number of vehicles per battle, so if you kill 1 per battle, this will be 1.0, so that you can, I don't kill 1 every battle, although I do now, but I didn't back when I first started. Maximum destroyed in battle, again, explains itself. Average damage caused to enemy vehicles, again. All of these are very self-explanatory, but I mean, it's nice to have the numbers. Average number of enemy vehicles spotted, that's an interesting number. Good for people who like to scout, which I used to. Here you can see what you drive the most, what nation, tier, etc. As you can see, my most used tier is 6, followed by 4 and 8. And if we go to your vehicles tab, there's all kinds of information up in here. You can sort them by nation, type, tier, name, battles, how many victory percentage it has, your average experience, and of course if you have a mastery badge, ace tanker. And here you can see. So if you beat 99% of all players in a week, in the last week, you will get a mastery ace tanker, and I have, I think, 20 of them. So that's interesting. Again, you can see your stats here. Maximum experience, blah, blah, blah. Average damages. Damage caused to enemy vehicles. Damage received. That's an interesting one. And I'm very glad they changed this because it's more... Well, it gives you a better insight. This is your personal rating, which is based off your battles, victories, battle survive, hits, average damage, and average experience. I kind of disagree that they put an emphasis, or they seem to have quite an importance on the amount of battles, because that doesn't necessarily dictate if you're a good or a bad player, as I know people who have a lot more battles than me who are worse players than me. If we go to the store next, you'll see lots of parts. These are all the parts available to my vehicles. These are available to my vehicle. So you can see every little thing that's available for my vehicles. You can buy shells, equipment, consumables, you know, etc. If you go all vehicles, you can see here, this is every last consumable. So there's quite a few, as you can see. If we go to vehicles, here's where you can buy your tanks. You sort them by whatever. So if we go all types, just to give you an example of how many are in the game, the list keeps going on and on and on for quite a while. Store is a very simple thing. Doesn't really need much explaining. Depot is something that can be quite useful if you don't know about. Here you will have weapons that are, well, parts and stuff for your tanks, so your guns, tracks, engines. So when you upgrade your engine, for example, you can go in here. You can see I upgraded the turret on my VK4502P, but it didn't sell the turret, it just replaced it and put this in my depot. So if I were to go here, I could sell this and sell this, and now I have nothing, and I have extra money. You can do the same with your excess shells, your excess equipment, but why would you want to? Because these are actually useful and reasonably expensive. And as a note, I would recommend always putting a tank gun rammer on all your tanks if you can fit them. Not all tanks can because of autoloaders, which are basically you get a magazine of X amount of shots, and once you fired it takes a little bit longer to reload them. And your consumables, which are in your depot. As you see, I have 19 fire extinguishers on my vehicles, and 1 in my depot. And another new addition in the latest patch is the missions tab, and while I'm not 100% familiar with this myself, I can explain. Basically, they've added missions for your get battles, so here if you win 15 random battles in a day, you get 250,000 gold, credits, sorry. And this one, if you get one of the top 3 experience, your crew gets a little bit extra experience, as in you get a 1.2 experience coefficient. I don't know exactly how much that would be in raw numbers, but I'm sure someone will figure that out. And here you can see if you get 50,000 experience within 24 hours, you get a 1-day premium. I've gotten this a couple times. It takes quite a long day's worth of grinding, but it can be worth it if you want that extra premium. Here they'll have to get this, you get extra credits for driving these tanks during this period, and so forth. These are missions that will be coming, from what I can tell. As you can see here, this one will start in October, and it is pretty much the exact same as this one. So yeah, that is pretty much everything in the interface. I will explain more of the battle interface in just a second. And here you see a battle screen. I'm in my tier 9 medium. As you can see, this is very much a tier 10 match. I'm not going to actually go through the replay itself because, well, that isn't what this video is about. What this video is about is the interface. Now, as we can see, in the bottom you have your various types of ammunition and your consumables. And I don't know if you can see, but these are bound to, on my end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I want to switch to high explosive from normal ammo, I press 3 2 times. So first, if you press it once, it'll reload after a shot, whatever is already chambered. The second one will force it to reload. 4 is my repair kit, 5 is my med kit, and 6 is my fire extinguisher. If you look down here is your damage panel. As you can see, you have your modules, all of them, and their state. So if they're grayed out like this, they're perfectly fine. If they turn yellow, then they're damaged but not broken. So for example, your track's yellow, it means you've taken a hit in the side of your tank, but they haven't broken yet. If they're red, they're broken, and it will take however many seconds it will take to repair them, and so on. This obviously means this will light up if your tank's on fire. If your health bar here you have your crew. Now, if you lose a crew member, they have varying effects. Your commander will reduce your view range. If you lose your gunner, you'll obviously lose accuracy. Driver, your tank will slow down somewhat, less acceleration, and it won't turn basically at all. The loader basically reduces reload speed, and obviously if you get that along with your ammo rack, you are going to have a very bad day. So if we look up here, you can see the tier spread, or what kind of tanks they are. So the small diamonds are lights, the triangles are tank destroyers, the 2 like lines, they're mediums, and the 3 ones are obviously heavies. Like, for example, you can see the tank destroyer behind me, the light there, the heavy there, and let's see, there's a medium right there. This is obviously a reticule. It'll show various information if you just hold over him so I can explain it. Here is your health bar. This area here will go up when you're reloading, and then obviously once you reload it'll be green, and then once you fire, yeah, you understand how that works. It fills up again. Here you have your amount of shells, and up here, hang on, there, you'll see the distance to target. This can be relevant, especially with ammo types like AP, and even more so with APCR, because it loses a lot of penetration over distance. Now, I don't know if you can see, but if you look in the middle here, you can see the crosshair. This will change color depending on where you're looking at an enemy tank. So if it's green, you are guaranteed to penetrate pretty much, unless they angle away from you. But you will pretty much penetrate every shot there. If it's orange, you might penetrate. It's kind of iffy, and if it's red, just don't even try. You won't get through. Now, here you can obviously see the names of the players, the tank they're driving, the silhouette. These will take a while to learn, but eventually you'll figure out most, if not all of them. This means that these 2 are in a platoon, and these 2 are in a platoon. Basically, platoons are like, you can group up with up to 2 other people, so 3 people, and then you can roll around in normal battles, having fun, and, just generally playing the game. There is also something called tank companies, where you can have up to like 15 people, I think it is, and it's based off of set points, so every tank gives X points, and then Once you fill up enough, you play a battle, and it's basically more of a yeah, it's like this, but it isn't randomized in that you know exactly who you're playing with, and obviously they'll have a team as well. So yeah, if we hold tab, we get this screen, which is basically that, but more detailed. Only thing different really here is this line, which shows if they're connected or not. And then obviously silhouettes, if they're destroyed or not, I believe that is. And yeah, the mission, so there are three types of battles, I believe. Yeah, you have your standard battle, which is basically, if you look at the minimap, there is a flag there and there. So we have to go here and try and capture or destroy all their tanks, and they have to do the same with us, but here. And that's pretty much the standard game mode. So, you know, you'll rush across, try and kill, or, you know, whatever you want, however you want to do it. If you're on encounter, there will be they'll spawn differently, and there will also be a capture point separately. So on this map, encounter, I happen to know that the capture circle is somewhere around here. But it is neutral, so both teams have to try and rush and get it. One starts up here, around here somewhere, if memory serves. And one starts down here, or down here, and then they either, you know, you have to fight it out over that one area. There's also assault, which basically means that one team is on offense and the other is on defense, and that has a slightly shorter time limit. When you're in these special game modes, or the capture time is, I think, 1 point per second per tank, with a max of 3. So if you have 3 tanks in there, which is that big white circle around the flag, then it'll tick up at... Okay, say you have 3 tanks, then you'll get 3 points up to 100, and once you get 100, you win after 5 seconds, and vice versa for there. On encounter, this is reduced, so, or it takes slower. I don't know exactly how much slower, but it takes generally longer, and various mods can actually show that. Up here you have, well, you can't really see because of my counter, but there is FPS and ping, which some people will know what it is and some people won't. If you don't know what it is, then you probably don't really need to worry about it. Just interesting details to know when you're playing. This is your minimap, and as you can see, it is grid-based, so it goes from A to K and 1 to 0. And you can click on it. If you hold control and left click, you will be able to click and, you know, highlight where you want to go. This is very important feature, and if there's one thing you take out of this tutorial, just one thing, it is always keep an eye on this. Good players will always keep an eye on their minimap. Now, there are hotkeys to do different things. So, for example, you can defend the base, attack, you can press help, reloading, and then you can obviously reply with affirmative, negative. F2 will highlight an enemy tank and request fire if you're in a tank. If you're in artillery, you'll tell them you're firing there. F3 wasn't that there? Yeah, F3 is defend the base, unless you're highlighting an ally, in which case it says fall back, and you can see it's changed. So, follow me, fall back, stop, or halt, instead of, you know, reloading, defend, and attack. So that's pretty much the battle interface. Your average battle will last 15 minutes, whereas I believe encounter is the same and assault is slightly less. So yes, and now once we're done, that should pretty much be it. So you're ready to go into battle and have fun games. Well, hopefully you've learned something from this tutorial, and as I said in the previous part, if there's one thing you take away from this, please use your minimap. Do not be what is known as a lemming and just rush with the pack. If you see everyone going one way, please go the other. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, favorite, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.